Shocking discovery. James Webb Telescope unveils alien structure at the universe's edge now. Deep in the uncharted abyss of space, something extraordinary was happening. The James Webb Telescope, that marvel of modern science, had captured a glimpse of a structure unlike anything humanity had ever seen. A massive silhouette clung to the edge of the observable universe, its form twisting and extending in ways that defied logic. A cold shiver ran down the spine of every scientist as the transmission flickered on their screens. This was not merely an optical illusion. It was a harbinger of a reality they hadn't prepared for. What lay on the other side? Were they staring at a monumental message from an alien civilization, or a bizarre cosmic phenomenon whispering secrets of creation itself? In the heart of the observatory, tension crackled like electricity in the air. Dr. Elizabeth Moore, head of the project, felt her heart race. With trembling hands, she pointed to her screen as images unfolded. There were metallic-like surfaces reflecting starlight, intricate patterns that hinted at intelligent design, but remained frustratingly elusive to understand. Her mind spun, torn between wonder and dread. How could this be real? A series of muted gasps filled the room, eyes widened, thoughts racing. What did this all mean? Were they truly alone? Questions hovered, palpable in the air. The structure pulsed with colors not found on any palette of the human eye, almost alive, sending chills that echoed in the silence of uncertain hearts. It pulsed like a distant heartbeat, summoning questions that gnawed at the very fabric of their understanding. This wasn't merely the discovery of the year. It was a challenge that could redefine existence itself. They were perched at the brink of a revelation that could plunge them into chaos or a brand new era of exploration. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As voices murmured in shock, a nervous anticipation surged through the observatory. What would they do next? They had to make a decision, but the weight of the unknown hung heavy. A buzzer suddenly echoed, signaling the incoming data that would soon provide clarity, but offer more questions instead. Would they be prepared for the information that might redefine their understanding of reality? Dr. Moore took a deep breath, ready to dive into the depths of the mystery that lay before them. Just as she thought to speak, the lights flickered and went out. Dr. Moore's heart hammered in her chest. The panic in the room escalated as whispers turned to frantic exchanges. The darkness felt suffocating against their pulse-racing anxiety. Monitors that had just revealed the alien structure now glowed only in faint emergency red, casting eerie shadows on the faces around her. "Status report?" she called out, trying to inject authority into the rising chaos. The faces of her team were illuminated in fragments, their expressions flickering between disbelief and despair. "Main power is down. Emergency systems are running, but we can't access the telescope feed," a technician shouted from the back. The words hit like ice water, freezing the momentum of discovery into a terrifying stillness. Elizabeth sensed the collective fear of the unknown, the fear of dangerous implications. What if the loss of power was more than a mere technical failure? What if they were being watched? "Let us get backup generators online," she barked, scanning the room. Every second felt like an eternity. "We need to see what happened." The team rallied, bolting from their seats, voices full of urgency. Elizabeth rubbed her temples, trying to steady her spiraling thoughts. The alien structure, pulsing with those otherworldly colors, had sparked a realization in her. The implications of what they discovered weren't just scientific, they could be existential. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered, and the screens rebooted. The weight of the moment was palpable as the screen began displaying data once more. The vivid images of the structure surged forth, pulses flickering in rhythm with her racing heartbeat. A wave of mixed relief and fear washed over her. They had re-established the connection, but the sight was now unsettling. "Is that?" someone murmured, voice trembling. There was something new on the screen. A fine, dark line began etching itself across the image of the structure, a faint outline of a symbol. As it completed, the tension in the room thickened. It wasn't merely a cosmic oddity. It was a message, words that seemed to form right before their eyes. Symbols twisted together, radiating light that felt like a language of the universe itself, speaking directly to them. "What does it mean?" another scientist whispered, eyes wide, roaming the room in terror. They weren't analyzing a mere physical entity anymore. This was something profound, something intelligent. Yet, as Dr. Moore's fingers hovered over the controls, she was struck by a tremor of doubt. What if they were not prepared for whatever this message conveyed? Then came the screams. No one could have anticipated the grinding sound that erupted from the power systems, followed by the wailing alarms. The main light surged back on, but with a dreadful flicker, and images on the screen froze, caught mid-message. People positioned themselves at the screens, hoping for clarity, but only confusion met them. "What is happening?" a technician gasped as images of the structure began to distort, twisting into a vortex of chaos. The colors pulsed faster, shifting from vibrant hues into a blinding glare, and with each burst, a panic spread through the observatory. Just as Elizabeth rushed toward the panel, a low rumble reverberated through the floor, shaking the entire building. The lights flickered sporadically, shuddering as though the structure in space was somehow reacting to their presence. And then, with a deafening roar, everything went dead once again. Cold silence enveloped them, and fear engulfed the room as everyone froze, hearts pounding wildly. What had they awakened, in that deep, dark silence? With breathing quickening and uncertainty looming, Elizabeth could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on her. Within the silence, an echoing thought began to form in the recesses of her mind. What if they weren't alone anymore? Now, as a new shadow loomed over humanity, decisions would need to be made. The choice wasn't about understanding anymore. It was about survival. What comes next in a world where nothing feels safe any longer? The darkness was thick, like a heavy curtain closing in. Elizabeth felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on them, unseen and unyielding. Heart pounding, she focused on the silence, each tick of the clock cutting through the stillness like a knife. "Everyone, stay sharp," she shouted, her voice echoing in the cramped space. Her team hesitated, faces pale, eyes darting toward the frozen screens. There was a palpable fear hanging like a storm cloud ready to break. A technician named Carla took a step forward, her voice a whisper. "We've lost all power, again. What if it's not just the systems? What if we lose everything?" "No!" Elizabeth snapped, urgency flooding her words. "We can't think like that. We need to focus on what is happening." As she spoke, the emergency lights flickered uncertainly. A rising murmur began to swell among them, an undercurrent of panic that threatened to overwhelm. Shadows danced across their faces, but Elizabeth tried to push through. "We need to activate the backup systems. We have to get that feed back online." A dull thud resonated from the control room, freezing her. A technician stumbled back, wide-eyed. "I saw something." "What do you mean?" Elizabeth demanded, turning sharply. "Saw what?" "Out there," he pointed, trembling. "In the void. It was moving." Every head turned slowly, straining to pierce the darkness through the observatory's thick glass. Elizabeth's breath quickened as she stepped forward, peering into the endless black. An icy dread gripped her gut like a vice. What could be out there? Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw it. A slight flicker, a glimmer in the darkness, just beyond the tendrils of starlight. She squinted hard, pulse racing, conviction battling against creeping doubt. Everyone, look! Focus on a blinding flash erupted from outside. The observatory shook violently, the floor trembling beneath her feet like an earthquake. Alarms blared, and the light swung chaotically, casting wild shadows of panic across the room. Elizabeth staggered, grappling with the console to maintain her balance. What the hell just happened? A voice screamed. In the rapid-fire chaos, screens flickered back to life, the alien structure coming into terrifying clarity. But now, those curious colors were replaced with ominous black void-like, consumed by darkness that seemed to push back against their reality. The symbols, once bright and clear, were now clouded, almost as if they were being obscured by something sinister. Where did the data go? Someone shouted, desperation slicing through their panic. And then Elizabeth felt it. A shift in the air, a presence, an overwhelming sensation that made her blood run cold. She turned sharply back to the window, and her breath caught in her chest. There, just outside their sphere of safety, a massive shadow loomed where the structure had been. Darker than the night, it twisted and shifted, growing larger and shifting in a way that felt sentient, alive. What is that? Someone whispered, voice scratching against the tension in the air. I don't know. Elizabeth's hands trembled on the console, uncertainty clawing at her mind. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, diving toward the observatory. Hold on! Elizabeth screamed as the foundations of their very world trembled. It felt like an avalanche of dread crashing upon them. In a heartbeat, the lights went out again, plunging them into utter darkness. Heartbeats slammed in her ears as she fought against the void filling the room. And then, in the absolute blackness, a voice, that alien language resonating deep within their minds, clashed against her sanity. Words formed, shivering across her consciousness. Choose. The word echoed, vibrating through every fiber of her being. Elizabeth's heart raced, feeling a choice settle on her shoulders like lead. Choose what? As fear pulled her deeper, a single question burned through the chaos. What would they sacrifice to uncover the truth? Choosing between knowledge or their very lives. One whisper taunted her it was only just the beginning. What lay ahead in this dark beyond? Elizabeth's eyes struggled to adjust to the void, horror coiling around her heart. The thudding pulse in her ears drowned out all other sounds, leaving her alone with her racing thoughts and the oppressive darkness. She took a deep breath, grounding herself, but her body betrayed her trembling, her mind replaying the chilling word that had pierced through the silence. Choose. Don't panic, she forced out, her voice trembling slightly. We need to assess the situation. But even as she said it, doubt filled her mind like a thick fog, and she felt the team's collective dread suffocating her. Elizabeth. Carla's voice broke through, panic palpable. If we lose the data, if we lose our identities, can we really start over? The questions hung in the air. What was this darkness demanding from them? And what did it mean to give up everything they had? Dread washed over her, a tidal wave of uncertainty. They hadn't signed up for this. They were here for discovery, science, truth, not choice between existence and oblivion. We have to find the backup controls, she shouted, forcing authority into her voice. There might still be power. We might still have a chance. As Elizabeth moved to the control panel, she fumbled, her hands slick with sweat. The thin beam of her flashlight flickered and then died, plunging her into darkness again. A surge of panic swept through the room, faces shadowed, fears etched deep. Elizabeth, over here. Carla's voice pierced through her frustration. Thankful for her team's resolve, Elizabeth followed the sound, moving as fast as she dared. She reached Carla's side, squinting into the opacity. What did you find? An emergency generator, Carla said, pointing. It should give us enough power to reboot the backups. Elizabeth felt a momentary glimmer of hope. Let us do it. They huddled over the generator, fingers trembling as they punched in the sequence. But moments stretched into eternity. Instead of the comforting hum of machinery powering up, silence descended, more oppressive, more terrifying than before. Why isn't it working? Panic laced Carla's voice. Everyone focus. Elizabeth snapped, channeling her fear into urgency. We need to keep calm. Reset it. Outside the observatory, the shadow pulsed, seeming almost to breathe. It loomed larger each moment, its dark outline shifting like angry clouds ready to storm. Elizabeth could barely see it through the layers of glass, its movement eerie and disturbing. Then, a chill danced down her spine as that alien voice returned, this time clearer, penetrating deeper into her soul. Choose now. A wave of cold washed over them, and Elizabeth felt the very essence of her being tremble. What are they asking for? Desperate thoughts crashed together. What choice had to be made? Knowledge at the cost of survival? Suddenly, the consoles flickered back to life for a brief moment, revealing secrets hidden in the shadows. Data streamed across the screens, a glimpse of the structure they had been studying. It was maddeningly beautiful and unsettling. It pulsed like a heart, and Elizabeth felt drawn to it, both terrified and captivated. Look! She cried as colored symbols briefly flooded the screen. Yet, as soon as they appeared, they darkened again, almost laughing at their desperation. Elizabeth, Carla said, a tremor in her voice, interrupting her thoughts. If this is what it wants, are we equipped to understand it? A heavy silence followed, their choices looming like specters in the absence of light. Was uncovering the truth worth losing themselves? The air thickened, and she caught the faintest glimpse of that ominous shadow shifting violently. They were running out of time. Just then, a horrifying realization hit her. What if it's not the truth we sacrifice but each other? The ground trembled underfoot, a crack beneath them plunging into the abyss beyond comprehension. In a moment of clarity that felt like blinding light amidst the dark, the flickering voice returned, a final decree echoing in their minds. Choose. How and what would they choose? With each tick of the clock, darkness crept closer. What awaited them in that unfathomable choice? As the oppressive darkness encroached, Elizabeth felt the air constrict around her throat. Carla's face turned a mask of terror, sweat glistening on her brow. What do you think it wants? She whispered, her voice barely a thread against the suffocating silence. Elizabeth shook her head, desperate for answers. I don't know. But we have to make it. A sudden flicker of light caught her eye, momentarily pulling her focus away from the shadows that seemed to writhe against the windows. The screens lit up again, this time clearer and more frantic. They displayed a mosaic of swirling colors, symbols transforming and shifting as though they were alive. Each pulse echoed the rhythm of their hearts, growing louder, like a drum summoning them to understand. Look! It's trying to tell us something, Elizabeth exclaimed, grabbing Carla's arm as they both leaned closer to the screens. Bites of ancient knowledge radiated forth, coiling around her mind. The air was electric with possibility and fear, but it was then that the whispers returned, coiling around them, sharp and insistent. Choose, 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 the word echoed inside of them, a relentless taunt. Can you make sense of it? Carla asked, her voice barely above a whisper, desperation etching deep lines on her face. With trembling hands, Elizabeth reached for a pen and a notepad scattered on the control panel. She started scribbling down what she saw, trying to catch the fleeting meanings before they blinked out. There's something here, something. It feels like a warning. A shadowy figure outside the window shifted closer, its malevolent presence filling the air with dread. Elizabeth squinted, trying to glimpse its nature, but it was like trying to catch smoke in her fingers. Whatever it was, it knew they were ready to fold under the pressure, ready to abandon hope. Elizabeth, think? Carla pleaded, her voice rising in pitch. We can't just give in. We can't stop. We need to focus. Elizabeth shouted, the snap of her words cutting through the tension, forcing her team back to the screens filling with unknown possibilities. This could be our only way out. As she scrutinized the symbols, her mind raced. Her thoughts connected the fears swirling around them with fragments of information they had gathered prior, a pattern they had seen in their research, a sequence tied to their studies. These colors, this feels like a mathematical equation, a formula for communication? Carla finished, eyes wide. Yes. If we can decode it, maybe we can understand what it wants. Elizabeth felt a surge of adrenaline pulse through her. The idea flickered like hope, bright yet precarious. But the atmosphere shifted again, thickening with a palpable tension. The ominous shadow outside twisted violently, casting dark tendrils crawling along the ground towards the observatory. There was no doubt. Time was running out, and with every second, they teetered closer to being consumed by their surroundings. Don't just sit there. We need to enter it, Carla urged, waving towards the consoles, her voice rising in urgency. What if we get it wrong? Elizabeth's heart pounded. What if it retaliates? Then we're done for anyway. Carla shot back, a fierce flicker of determination igniting in her eyes. The weight of their fate crescendoed, and the word loomed in their minds, pressing hard against their hearts. Choose. Elizabeth blinked, focusing on the chaos before her. The decision had to come now. Would they risk everything, diving deeper into the enigma, or cling desperately to the fragile safety of ignorance? What if understanding the message changes us forever? She murmured, almost to herself. Carla nodded solemnly, understanding dawning on her face. Then maybe we have to make that sacrifice. If that's what it takes. Suddenly, the screens glowed brighter, illuminating the darkness like a flare. Choose, commanded the whisper again. The ground lurched beneath them, a deep rumble emanating from the depths below. A choice was flickering before them, laden with consequences heavy as lead. Would they decipher the truth and risk it all, or would they allow shadowy fate to seal their doom? Before they could speak, a blinding flash erupted from the screens, flooding the observatory with light, a collision of colors and energy that felt like the universe itself had reached out. What revelation awaited them in the light? And what would it demand in return? The light enveloped them, sharp and blinding, forcing Elizabeth to shield her eyes. The air buzzed with electricity, a tingling sensation that danced across her skin, awakening a primal instinct deep within her. Elizabeth. Carla's voice pierced through the brilliance, trembling with urgency. What is happening? Through the brilliance, Elizabeth felt sensations, visions slipping into her mind like whispers, fragments of shapes and symbols emerging from the chaos. They coalesced into a vivid tapestry, something ancient yet timeless unspooling before her, and within it, a fearsome truth began to rise. It's showing us. Elizabeth gasped, her voice tremulous. Her heart thudded loudly, a primitive drum signaling the arrival of something momentous. Within the light, images solidified, structures, vast and impossibly intricate. Orbiting colossi that spun like cosmic gears against a backdrop of the void. Each structure pulsed with an energy as if it were alive, enthralling and terrifying all at once. What are we seeing? Carla breathed, transfixed. The reality of their situation hit like a freight train. Are these aliens? The realization thudded against Elizabeth's chest like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a communication, it was an invitation, or perhaps a warning. She grappled with her fear, attempting to make sense of the revelation while the light gradually faded. I think Elizabeth hesitated, struggling to articulate her racing thoughts. I think it's a map. A map leading to something. But it's not just showing the location. It's showing us their purpose. Carla interjected, her voice quavering. Elizabeth nodded, her thoughts racing to fit the pieces together. Yes, and it's asking us to participate. Her fingers trembled against the notepad, as she frantically synthesizing the symbols now etched into her mind. Suddenly, the screens glitched, flashing once more, their bright dance morphing into chaotic grays and blacks. The air thickened, and the shadows outside grew restless, writhing in the corners of their vision as if agitated by the revelations. "It wants us to choose!" Carla shouted, her eyes wide with fear. "Choose to engage, or to flee." An echoing cadence of the whisper clung to the air around them, circling tighter with every heartbeat. "Choose." Elizabeth felt a twinge in her gut, twisting with dread. But what if we choose wrong? What if we might miss the chance to learn something monumental? Carla countered fiercely. What is the alternative? Ignorance that could cost us everything? Time stretched and pulled like a rubber band. Every second felt agonizingly weighted. Elizabeth could hear her heartbeat in her ears, a primal rhythm urging her to act. She stepped toward the console, compelled by an invisible force. "What if we choose knowledge?" she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper, the temptation sizzling in the air. The ground trembled again, stronger this time, threatening to throw them off balance. The shadows seemed to pulse and throb, eager to pounce, feeding off their hesitation. A sudden blast of wind rushed through the observatory, startling them both, swirling and howling, almost like a living entity urging them forward. Elizabeth fumbled to reach the keyboard, fingers hovering above the keys. "Are you ready?" she asked Carla, their eyes locking in silent agreement, a pact forged in fear and determination. "Now or never." Carla nodded, her breathing rapid yet steady. Elizabeth took a breath, closing her eyes for a fleeting moment. When she opened them again, they glittered with resolve. With a sudden, decisive stroke on the console, she initiated the sequence. Color flooded the screens again, swirling into vibrant patterns as the incantation spilled out into the void. The darkness around them reacted, shimmering, quaking, erupting in wild energy. The ground shook violently, and whispers grew louder, drowning out reason. In that moment, clarity enveloped Elizabeth as energy surged through her. She felt a connection, a tether binding her to something infinite. "What did we just do?" Carla asked, panic-threatening her voice. "I don't know," Elizabeth answered, the words hanging heavy in the air as their reality shifted around them. With eyes wide as saucers, they both turned to face the screens, now alive with a brightness more intense than anything they had witnessed before. They had made their choice, but what would it demand from them? A shadow loomed again, more pronounced this time. What shadow lingered at their doorstep, and could they survive the consequences of their decision? The light blared brighter, slicing through the shadows like a knife. Elizabeth and Carla stood frozen, their senses heightened, nerves electric. The screens pulsated with an energy that felt alive, almost conscious, communicating something lurking just out of their comprehension. "What is happening?" Carla whispered, her voice cracking with fear. "What did we unleash?" Elizabeth's heart raced, each beat hammering in her ears. "I feel something," she murmured, eyes reflecting the dazzling chaos before them. "Like it's reaching out to us. There's more here than we understand." The air grew thick around them, saturated with unfulfilled potential. Whispers crescendoed, echoing with urgency, leaving a trail of goosebumps across Elizabeth's skin. The dark corners of the observatory bubbled with anticipation, as if the very walls were leaning in to listen. Participation, Carla breathed, hesitant yet captivated. But at what cost? Suddenly, the screen shifted, revealing an intricate spiral galaxy spiraling toward a distant, radiant structure. Wisps of energy danced around it, each flicker resonating with a rhythm that matched the frantic beating of their hearts. "Look!" Elizabeth pointed, her breath catching in her throat. Glistening above the vastness of dark space was a colossal constructed artificial structure whose origin defied reason. It thrummed with life, reflecting hues of sapphire and emerald, pulsating in sync with the shadows clawing at their consciousness. Is that gathering energy? Carla's eyes widened, drawing her closer to the screen, as if compelled by an unseen force. Could that be a power source? Elizabeth asked, the realization cementing itself in her mind. What if it's not just technological? What if it has a purpose beyond our understanding? The whispering surged, crescendoing into a spine-tingling mantra: discover, engage, transform. What do they want from us? Carla's voice trembled, uncertainty gnawing at her throat. Are we even prepared for this? A jarring blast from outside echoed through the observatory, shaking the very foundations beneath their feet. The once familiar surroundings warped and bent, reality twisting like a mirage. Panic gripped them, and fear seeped into every breath they took. They seemed to have crossed a threshold, swallowing them into a realm where humanity's place felt precarious. Elizabeth, we shouldn't be here. Carla shouted over the clamor of noise reverberating through the air. What if we open a door we can't close? That might be exactly what they want, Elizabeth shot back, her eyes locking onto the mesmerizing structure emanating energy against the cosmic canvas. They're pulling us closer. We're part of their story now. A blinding surge exploded from the monitor, illuminating the room in a blinding flash. Carla shielded her eyes, her instincts screaming for them to retreat. But Elizabeth stood paralyzed, her very essence beckoned by the vast work of creation pulsating before her, a dance of possibilities waiting to unfold. The overwhelming force filled the observatory, pushing them toward the screens. Memories merged with visions of the aliens' world, and Elizabeth felt an unbreakable connection, as if she were part of something larger, something vital. Elizabeth! Carla shouted again, pulling her hand to keep her grounded. What if we can't handle what is next? What if? Elizabeth started, but then she froze, an overwhelming understanding washing over her, intertwining her fate with the unfolding mysteries. What if we're the key? Their shared gaze spoke volumes, a blend of hope and terror creating a fragile bond. They knew there was no escaping now. They had crossed the lines of understanding, and whatever came next would demand far more than they anticipated. A chilling shadow surged around them, and everything dimmed. The whispers grew distant, spiraling into chaos. Focus tightened around those two precarious figures facing the unknown. Can we really trust them? Carla's question hung in the air, a potent mix of doubt and dread. Elizabeth took a deep breath, heart pounding. We might have to. Carla. All the signs are leading us here, but to what? The darkness quaked, coiling around them like a serpent ready to attack. The screens flickered violently, offering glimpses of more dazzling wonders, but also darker horrors. A new image erupted on the screen, a dark fissure pulsating with light, a rift. What is that? Carla's voice wavered, the words slicing through the taut tension. The unknown, Elizabeth replied, grounding herself. But it's also a choice we have to make. As the fissure widened, they stood on the brink, their lives threatening to splinter into infinity. Would they step through, or would they succumb to the dread enveloping them? What peril or promise awaited them on the other side? The rift pulsed, a living entity drawing them in like a moth to a flame. Elizabeth's heart raced closer to panic as the shadows shimmered around the edges, dancing wickedly. We have to decide, she shouted, desperation flooding her voice. Are you insane? Carla shot back, fear etching lines across her face. What if we become trapped? What if it consumes us? Every fiber of Elizabeth's being screamed to take that leap. The energy flowing from the fissure felt like home, calling them, promising answers, a chance to understand. What if it's the only way to find out why we're really here? She implored, fighting against the swell of doubt creeping in. To grasp the truth about what we've unleashed? Or to unleash something worse? Carla retorted, glancing frantically around the room as the air felt more electric by the second. The whispers intensified, stronger now, almost tangible, echoing her thoughts. Engaged trance in the voices felt like an unbreakable bond, intertwining with her resolve. Carla. Elizabeth reached out, the urgency in her voice slicing through the tension. If we don't act, we might never know what is waiting for us. This might be our only shot. Glimpses of increasingly vibrant images cascaded across the screens. Alien landscapes dotted with bizarre lifeforms flashed like rapid-fire memories. Their vivid beauty mixed with stark terror clawed at the back of Elizabeth's mind. Yet amidst the chaos, she felt a stirring of courage. Shouldn't they strive to understand? Carla's hand trembled in hers, but Elizabeth saw something else there, curiosity. I don't know what happens next, but I trust you, she finally whispered. With a swift glance at the swirling abyss, Elizabeth took a resolute step forward. Then let us step into the unknown together. The moment their feet crossed the threshold, reality twisted. The fissure expanded, pulling them into a vortex of unreality, colors swirling in a chaotic maelstrom like fragments of a shattered dream. Liz's heart raced, merging excitement and fear into a concoction that felt both exhilarating and sickening. They floated, unanchored in a sea of stars and shadows, each pulse battering their senses. It was as if they had breached some cosmic barrier that separated them from what came before, the understanding of ordinary life becoming a distant memory. Suddenly, a wave of vertigo struck, and the world righted itself. They landed on solid ground, crashing onto an unfamiliar surface, soft yet firm, pulsing as if alive. Taking a moment to regain her breath, Elizabeth looked around, heart hitching. The landscape glowed, a surreal world illuminated in lively whites and vibrant hues of blue and green. Strange flora swayed as if in greeting, and ambient sounds floated in the air like forgotten songs. But it wasn't just the beauty. There was an undeniable sense of being watched. "Where are we?" Carla whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "I have no idea," Elizabeth admitted, peering into the distance, where tall structures loomed ominously. "But we need to move, there might be others here." As they cautiously stepped forward, a rustling sound caught their attention. Elizabeth's pulse quickened, the feeling of eyes upon them escalated. From behind a shimmering barrier, a silhouette emerged, tall and otherworldly, framed by an ethereal glow. Time paused, a stillness wrapping around them tighter than before. "What have we awakened?" the figure asked, voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Elizabeth's throat tightened. She hesitated, unsure of whether to step closer or retreat back toward the rift they had just traversed. "We are searching for answers." The being chuckled softly, a sound echoing far more deeply than physicality could allow. "Then bear witness. Your journey is only just beginning." The ground shook slightly beneath them, a reminder that the balance of their world had shifted forever. What truths lay behind those haunting words? Would they uncover revelations that could unite worlds or drive them apart beyond reckoning? The ground trembled again, and Elizabeth struggled to keep her footing as a thrill of dread coursed through her. The figure before them shimmered, revealing details that sent chills racing down her spine. Its features were both familiar and profoundly alien. Eyes, like liquid silver, seemed to swirl with galaxies, and its elongated limbs moved with an elegance that felt otherworldly. "Come closer," it beckoned, the weight of its voice layered with untold knowledge. An almost magnetic force drew Elizabeth and Carla toward it, a duality of fear and fascination pushing them along. "What do you mean, bear witness?" Elizabeth asked, her own voice trembling. Light and darkness danced in the backdrop, creating a chaotic tapestry that felt alive, vibrant as the figure's aura. "Your presence has shifted the fabric of this realm," it explained, gesturing with a graceful sweep of its hand. "You have entered a nexus, of space where realities converge. Here, your desires resonate, and your fears echo back at you." A vivid flash momentarily filled the air before them. Images rushed through Elizabeth's mind, their lives, their past decisions, their latent fears laid bare. She saw moments of doubt, glimpses of lost friendships, feelings of insignificance layered with small triumphs. Each scene felt gut-wrenchingly real, like shards of memory splintering inside her. "Why are you showing us this?" Carla asked, rising courageously, eyes narrowing against the chaos of visions surrounding them. "What do you want from us?" Understanding, the figure replied cryptically, its voice wrapping them in a cocoon of warmth. "You stand at the precipice of choices that will ripple across dimensions." Carla frowned, her fear metamorphosing into a steely resolve. "We didn't come here to be pawns in someone else's game." "Game?" The being's laughter now felt almost melodic. "It is far more poignant than play. The decisions of one can alter the fates of many. Who you choose to become here will shape worlds." Sparks of anxiety ignited in Elizabeth's chest. "How can we know what the right choices are? We're just us." "Exactly," it whispered, each word a tender caress against reality. "The complexity of existence requires but one pure intention." Their surroundings shimmered again, reshaping into a dizzying array of vibrant colors and images flashing by so rapidly that Elizabeth felt her head spin. Caught in this storm, they witnessed others before them, dark silhouettes against the backdrop, some striving for knowledge, others plunging into shadows of despair. Each choice spun out across the fabric of this unsettling dimension, each ripple echoing with consequence. Elizabeth grasped Carla's hand tighter. "What is that supposed to mean? Pure intention? What if we make the wrong choice?" The figure's expression softened, shimmering slightly with an aura of compassion. "There is no wrong or right in this realm of possibility, only paths. The intent you carry shapes your reality. Follow your heart." With that, all the vibrant scenes solidified, creating a pathway before them. A portal, bright and ephemeral, opened wide, revealing two distinct routes. One pulsed with radiant energy, the other was draped in shadowy mist, hiding the unknown. "But which path should we take?" Elizabeth questioned, her throat dry. The being smiled with an almost transcendent knowledge. "You must choose for yourselves. But know this, every choice leads to a new dawn or a beckoning dusk." As they stood poised at the threshold, the air crackled surrounding them, charged with an indescribable energy. Elizabeth's heartbeat thundered in her ears, fear and exhilaration twisting together like a cyclone. Every instinct screamed at her to act, but every thought hinted at the weight of their potential choices. Then came the faint sound of distant thunder, rumbling ominously. The ground shook more forcefully. "Time is running out," the figure urged, its voice echoing as if rebounding from the very walls of reality. "Choose or be consumed by what lies waiting in the dark." With trembling hands, Elizabeth turned toward Carla, the gravity of their situation sinking deeper. What path would they take? What would they risk, and at what cost? A decision hung heavy between them, ready to tip the scales of fate. Before them lay one question: could they handle the truth that awaited? And as they contemplated the unknown, something shifted behind them, a shadow of their past flickering like a dying flame. The chilling wind swept through the vibrant landscape, their whispers mingling with the ambient sounds of this otherworldly realm. Elizabeth's heart raced as she locked eyes with Carla, the weight of impending choices pressing down on them like a thick fog. The moment was charged, electric. It felt as if the very fabric of reality was holding its breath, waiting for them to act. "Which path?" Elizabeth finally asked, her voice barely piercing the overwhelming tension. They stood before two distinct paths, the one glowing with radiant energy seemed full of promise and light, while the shadowy mist draped over the other was ominous, cloaked in uncertainty. The decision felt monumental, forked with consequences they could scarcely comprehend. "Follow your heart," echoed the being's voice, resonating in the corners of Elizabeth's mind. What did that mean? Heart racing, she felt a craving for knowledge, a burning desire to understand the cosmos in all its intricate beauty. Yet fear hung like a specter over them. What if the path of light led to devastation? What if the shadows concealed answers too terrifying to confront? "Let us go through the light," Carla said suddenly, gripping Elizabeth's hand. "We need to see." But Elizabeth's instincts tugged her back, wrestling with the exhilaration coursing through her. What if it's a trap? She felt uncertainty creep in, a nagging worry that pushed against her bravery. What if it's not just knowledge to be gained, but a loss we can't foresee? Carla squeezed her hand tighter. The only thing we can truly lose is the chance of knowing. We can't run from that. Without breaking their connection, they took a step forward. The pulse from the radiant path intensified as they approached, illuminating their features in bright hues, almost as if welcoming them. Together, Elizabeth murmured, feeling the strength of their commitment wash over her. "We do this together." With a final deep breath, they rushed forward, crossing the threshold into the radiant path. Colors exploded around them, vibrant and alive, swirling like a kaleidoscope. Laughter and voices echoed in cadence, a celestial song celebrating their choice. For a moment, they felt weightless, as though they were merging with the universe, vibrant and infinite. Just as quickly, the brightness faded, and they found themselves standing in a vast chamber, glowing with ethereal light. Strange symbols danced on the walls, pulsating as if infused with their essence. They were surrounded by fragmented displays of alien technology, both familiar and unfathomable. "What is this place?" Carla breathed, all washing over her. There was a profound sense of peace here, but it was countered by the gentle stirrings of fear. Elizabeth felt it too, but pressed against it, reaching toward the closest luminescent structure. "It's like a library." "A repository of knowledge," Elizabeth whispered, diving deeper into the light. At its center stood a glowing orb, suspended mid-air, radiating with the weight of understanding. This is the truth they wanted to share. Carla stepped forward, entranced. "But what do we do with it?" Elizabeth stretched out her hand, resting it lightly against the orb. Instantly, a torrent of visions cascaded over her mind. Images flashed before her eyes, galaxies colliding, civilizations rising and falling, the timeline of existence unfolding like a thread woven through the cosmos. And then a warning, clear and piercing, about the consequences of neglecting the balance of knowledge and responsibility. "Knowledge is power and responsibility," Elizabeth whispered, breathless. The orb pulsed, echoing her realization, almost guiding her understanding further. Carla looked at Elizabeth, her eyes wide. "What do we have to do?" The vision spiraled into a single lucid thought amidst the chaos. They had to share this knowledge, but not just for their sake. It could alter the fates of countless lives across galaxies, teaching them about the dangers of unchecked ambition and destruction. "Let us transmit it," Elizabeth voiced her thoughts aloud, her conviction growing stronger. "Share it with humanity. They need to know what we've learned, but they also need to be aware of the choices that accompany it." "What if they don't listen?" Carla's voice trembled with concern. "Then we must hope this knowledge leads them to the right path. But we can't let fear dictate our actions." Elizabeth steadied herself, heart thudding like a drum. They had crossed barriers no one else had, and with that came the chance to protect not just their universe, but others. "It's going to take everything from us," Carla warned, worry etched deeply across her brow. "Then let us be that sacrifice together." With resolve bubbling within them, they grasped the orb, and together they focused their thoughts on sharing this wisdom. The entity shifted shape around them, enchanting them in luminous light as they poured their intentions into the cosmos. In a surge of energy, the orb expanded, sending forth beams of light that streamed into the dark abyss outside, igniting the void with the essence of their shared knowledge. "Look!" Carla gasped, pulling Elizabeth back just enough to catch glimpses of shadows shifting into form. Wraith-like figures began to emerge from the darkness, responding to the pulse of energy. Were they previous civilizations? Messengers from beyond? Entities seeking the same understanding? The chamber started shaking as if the weight of their shared truth transformed the very structure of its existence. And then, with a final blinding flash, everything went dark. Have we failed? Elizabeth breathed, fear gripping her heart like vice. But the enveloping darkness brought no dread. Instead, it cradled them with certainty. Like a whisper in the wind, a thought echoed back to them: you chose wisely. Elizabeth felt the warmth return, wrapping around her as light seeped slowly into the darkness, reshaping, illuminating their path once more. As they opened their eyes, they found themselves back in the observatory, the screens flickering with vibrant energy. The structure outside pulsed, now glowing harmoniously with the universe. They had not merely transmitted knowledge, they had forged a new connection, and through this victory, Elizabeth felt the threads of gravity, connection, and responsibility weaving together, stitching their fate back into the universe. With the darkness receding, Elizabeth and Carla embraced, tears streaming as they laughed in relief. Fear transformed into hope, and purpose surged within them. "Together, we did it," Elizabeth whispered. "Together," Carla agreed, exhilaration lacing her voice. They had faced the unknown, made their choice, and emerged not just as survivors, but as guides for those still navigating the depths of existence. "Let us tell the world," Elizabeth said, determination igniting in her chest. They had unveiled truths beyond comprehension. They had chosen to stand for knowledge, for responsibility, and for each other. And with that, they stepped into a future that glimmered with endless possibilities, ready to share their journey and illuminate the path for others. But this was merely the beginning. Before anything else, Elizabeth turned toward the camera that had captured all of their insights. "You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share," she urged, the energy of the universe behind her words. "Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Finally, make it a mission to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion." The world wouldn't miss another moment. She felt it pulse in her veins. Together, they would forge ahead, reaching for the stars.